A millionaire accidentally got into my car. I thought I was being robbed, and what I did shocked him. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I never thought an ordinary day could turn into the kind of moment that changes everything. The kind you replay over and over in your mind, questioning every choice you made. That morning, I woke up just like any other day, the sunlight spilling softly across my bedroom, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. I had my routines, my plans, my little comforts that made life feel steady, even in a world that isn't always kind. I was careful, I thought. I believed that being aware, being organized, would protect me from surprises. But that day, I was about to learn that life doesn't care about your careful plans. I remember slipping into my shoes, grabbing my bag, and heading toward the car, humming a little tune to myself, completely unaware of the tiny things I didn't notice. The streets were familiar, the cars moving as they always did, the neighbors waving from their windows. Everything seemed normal, safe. And maybe that's what makes the shock so much more intense when it comes. I opened the car door and stepped inside, and at first, it felt just like any other morning. But something in my gut didn't sit right. I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking, that I'd been reading too many news stories about danger everywhere. The engine purred under me, soft and familiar, but as soon as I glanced at the rearview mirror, a chill ran down my spine. The driver's face. It wasn't the familiar reflection of safety I expected. His eyes were sharp, alert, and for a fleeting second, I felt as though he could see straight into my thoughts. Something wasn't right. I don't even think I realized it fully at first. My mind tried to rationalize everything to say, it's fine, it's just a stranger, maybe it's an employee, maybe... But my instincts were screaming. We moved forward, the city blurring past, and I felt a twist in my stomach, a growing unease I couldn't ignore. And every shadow seemed darker, every reflection in a shop window more sinister. Then the car turned suddenly, into an alley I had never driven through before. My heart jumped into my throat, and I gripped the edge of the seat like it could anchor me in the chaos I felt rising. Why here? I tried to speak, to ask a question, but the words stuck in my throat. Fear had a strange way of freezing your voice, making you almost invisible to the danger you sense. Time slowed in that alley. The buildings pressed in around us, their shadows stretching long and sharp. The driver's face remained unreadable, but every movement, every shift in his posture felt like a test I didn't know I had signed up for. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands sweating, my mind racing through every possible scenario. I thought about my life, the people I cared about, the things I had yet to do. And suddenly, everything seemed so fragile, like a thread that could snap with a single misstep. I had to think fast. One choice, one reaction, could define what happened next. Panic wanted to take over, but I forced myself to breathe, to focus. I scanned the car, looking for something, anything, that could give me a chance to regain control. And in that instant, I realized something important. Fear is not weakness, it's clarity. Fear sharpens your mind. It makes you aware of what matters most. And in that moment, all I could think about was survival, about being more than just a victim. The car slowed again, and the driver's eyes met mine directly. That glance, it wasn't cruelty or anger. It was a mixture of surprise, confusion, and something I couldn't name. My chest tightened. I realized that assumptions, what I thought I knew, could be wrong. But there was no time for overthinking. I had to act, and instinctively I did. My decision was sudden, precise, and in a way, shocking, even to me. The shift in his head, the air was immediate. The tension in the car felt almost like it could snap, but it didn't. Instead, it held, stretched across the moments that felt like hours. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had almost walked into, about the strange collision of fear and courage, about how fragile the world can feel when one small mistake turns your life upside down. And even as the car continued forward, back onto streets I recognized, I felt a change within me, a sense of knowing that life had tested me, and somehow I had met the challenge. But I also knew that this wasn't just my story. It was a story that reflected countless moments, countless people who find themselves caught between danger, misunderstanding, and the raw, unfiltered human instinct to survive. Every movement, every glance, every heartbeat in that car remains vivid in my memory. The morning that started so ordinary became extraordinary in the most terrifying and revealing ways. And though I stepped out of the car that day, trembling but alive, I understood that moments like this leave permanent marks. They teach lessons about fear, courage, and the unexpected ways life can test us, sometimes when we least expect it. And so, as I walked away from that car, the city around me calm and indifferent, I couldn't stop thinking. How many times do we underestimate the power of a single moment, a single choice, a single decision? How quickly the ordinary can transform into something that challenges everything we believe about safety, control, and ourselves. That day taught me more than I could have imagined, and it was only the beginning. The moment I stepped out of the car, my legs were shaking like I had run a marathon I hadn't trained for. My hands were still damp with sweat, my heart hammering in my chest, each beat a reminder of how close everything had come to slipping out of control. I tried to steady myself, to breathe deeply, but the adrenaline was relentless, filling my entire body with a strange energy, a mix of fear and clarity. I remember thinking that if anyone, the thought of the driver lingered in my mind. Who was he really? What had he intended? And how had he reacted to my unexpected action? The unpredictability of that encounter gnawed at me. Every instinct I had used to survive felt like it had been sharpened in that moment. And I couldn't shake the idea that moments like these expose more than just fear. They reveal the unseen tensions in our world, the quiet battles between misunderstanding, danger, and courage. As I turned a familiar corner, I realized I was moving toward safety, toward the life I had been living before, but I wasn't the same person who had walked to that car earlier. Something inside me had shifted, subtle but undeniable. I was more aware now, not just of my surroundings, but of my own strength, my instincts, and the fragile way life balances between ordinary days and extraordinary challenges. And yet, even with that awareness, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The memory of the alley, the tension, the split-second reactions, all of it had left a mark. I couldn't simply forget it, and I didn't want to, because forgetting would be like denying the lessons I had learned, the courage I had discovered in myself, and the reminder that danger can appear when you least expect it. As I continued walking, I realized something else. Life is full of moments where fear and courage collide, moments that test every instinct and every ounce of resolve you have. And in that collision, you either discover who you really are or get swallowed by the unknown. That alley, that car, that driver, they were more than a single event. They were a reflection of the unpredictability of life itself. By the time I reached the familiar streets of my neighborhood, my body had begun to calm, but my mind was still racing. I knew I needed to process what had happened, to understand the ripple effect of that single moment. It was about understanding how fragile our assumptions are, how easily the world can twist into something unrecognizable. The day went on, but nothing felt normal. My hands shook slightly as I signed documents and checked emails. The sunlight outside my office window felt too bright, too ordinary, as if it was mocking the storm I had just come through. I thought about calling someone, anyone, to tell them what happened, but I hesitated. How do you explain a moment so intense, so sudden, without it sounding unreal? And besides, I realized, part of me didn't want to speak. It felt like this fear, this adrenaline, had revealed something private, something deeply personal about who I was. Later, as I walked through the lobby, I noticed small things that had never caught my attention before. A man staring too long, a shadow that seemed out of place, the subtle way someone's eyes moved across a room. Every detail was magnified, every instinct sharper. I felt like I had been given a lens into the world that most people didn't see, a lens forged from fear and sharpened by a single moment of unexpected danger. Then, as the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, I received a call. It was from the driver, or at least, I thought it was him. My stomach twisted. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Was this some kind of follow-up? Some reckoning I hadn't anticipated? The line clicked on, and a voice, calm but edged with uncertainty, asked me to meet. My mind raced. Every scenario played out in an instant. Was it an apology, a threat, a misunderstanding? My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain it could be heard over the phone. I agreed to meet. Part of me wanted to run, to hide, to forget the entire day and pretend it had never happened. But another part, a stronger, quieter part, knew that the only way to truly understand the moment, to confront what had occurred, was to face it head on. Courage, I realized, isn't about feeling no fear. It's about acting in spite of it. That evening, I walked to the meeting place, every step deliberate. The city had transformed under the setting sun. Streets I had always thought were safe now seemed shadowed, alive with possibilities I hadn't considered. The alley, the car, the driver, they had changed not only my perspective on danger, but my perspective on life itself. I felt hyper-aware of every movement, every sound, every possibility of what could go wrong. And yet, strangely, I felt a growing sense of control, a recognition that I had the ability to navigate these moments and emerge intact. When I saw him, waiting at the corner of a quiet street, my instincts screamed caution. But the moment wasn't what I had feared. His expression was open, almost remorseful, and for the first time, I realized that what had happened wasn't purely malicious. It had been a collision of assumptions, fear, and human error. The realization hit me like a wave. Danger isn't always deliberate. Sometimes it's just life testing you, showing you how quickly the ordinary can turn extraordinary. As we spoke, I began to understand more about the encounter, about the missteps and misunderstandings, and the way people react under pressure. And yet, even as clarity emerged, the emotional intensity didn't fade. My body still felt the echoes of the adrenaline. My mind still ran through every choice, every decision. I could feel the lesson settling in, deep and unshakable. Life can pivot on a single moment, and courage is measured in the decisions you make when everything seems uncertain. By the time I walked away that evening, the city lights flickering like distant stars, I realized that the story wasn't just about me or the car. It was about fear and courage, about how assumptions can mislead us, and about the way small moments can carry enormous weight. I had confronted danger, uncertainty, and my own limitations, and I had emerged not just unharmed, but profoundly changed. Even now, thinking back, I can feel the tension of that day, the collision of fear and clarity, and the sense that life is always ready to test us. And I can't help but wonder, how many times do we miss these moments? How often do we face danger without recognizing the strength it forces out of us? That day didn't just test me. It taught me, shaped me, and reminded me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting when every instinct screams to do the opposite. The night had settled over the city, soft and quiet, but my mind was anything but calm. Every shadow seemed alive. Every movement of a passerby exaggerated in my perception. The adrenaline from the earlier encounter had faded, but a new tension had taken its place. A tight coil in my chest, a feeling that something unavoidable was about to happen. I could feel it in my bones, in the rhythm of my breath, in the way my fingers clenched and unclenched almost unconsciously. I approached the meeting place with careful steps, each footfall echoing faintly on the empty sidewalk. My heart hammered in my chest. I couldn't tell if it was fear, anticipation, or the strange combination of both. I kept reminding myself that I had faced danger before, that I had acted decisively, and yet, this felt different. This was no longer a reaction in the moment. It was a confrontation, and in confrontations, outcomes are uncertain. When I saw him waiting, I froze for just a second, taking in the sight. The driver, this man who had thrown my ordinary morning into chaos, was staring at me. But there was no aggression in his stance, no malice. Instead, there was a flicker of uncertainty, a hesitation that mirrored my own. But my instinct screamed caution. Every part of me wanted to step back, to run, to disappear into the safety of familiar streets. I couldn't. Not this time. Not after everything. We exchanged words, carefully, cautiously. His voice was calm, but I could sense tension beneath every syllable. He explained, or at least attempted to, and I realized that so much of what had happened earlier wasn't deliberate. It was a collision of mistakes, fear, and misjudgments. Yet hearing that didn't ease the intensity of the moment. My mind flashed back to the alley, to the sudden fear, to the decisions I had made in a heartbeat. That memory was alive, vivid, impossible to ignore. And then, suddenly, the situation shifted. I could feel it before I even saw it. The subtle change in the air, the tightening of muscles, the brief hesitation that signaled something was about to happen. My instincts screamed, faster than thought could process. I acted immediately, moving with a precision that surprised even me. My heart pounded, my senses sharpened, and the world narrowed to a single focus: survival, clarity, and the split-second decisions that define life and death. The tension was unbearable. Every second stretched like hours. Every glance, every micro-movement weighted with consequence. I could feel the driver's surprise, the way he froze, unable to anticipate my action. It was as if time itself held its breath, waiting for the outcome. And in that frozen moment, I realized something essential. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. Clarity in the face of uncertainty. Decisiveness, when hesitation could cost you everything. Then it happened. The moment I had subconsciously prepared for since the morning. The pivot that changed everything. The fear that had clawed at me from the moment I entered the car collided with the instinctive clarity I had honed through every choice I had made that day. My action shifted the course of the encounter entirely. The air seemed to pulse with tension, and for a split second, nothing moved. My body was poised, my mind razor sharp, and all. The driver, the man who had thrown my morning into chaos, was staring at me in disbelief. I realized then that danger doesn't always come from intention. Sometimes it comes from the unexpected, the collisions of lives and choices that no one anticipates. That alley, that wrong turn, the car, it was all a catalyst, a test of instinct and courage. And I had passed. Not unscathed, not without trembling, but with a recognition that strength isn't measured by absence of threat. Strength is measured by what you do when the threat is real, when fear is immediate, and when every second counts. And even as the tension began to dissipate, I felt the full weight of what had happened. I had stared uncertainty in the face, acted decisively, and survived. The encounter was over, but it had left an indelible mark. I had learned more about myself in those moments than I had in years of planning, of careful living, of trying to maintain control. The world can shift in a heartbeat. Courage shows up when you least expect it. And fear. Fear is both a warning and a revelation. I walked away that night, trembling but alive, every step heavy with the memory of the encounter. I understood that this wasn't just a personal story, a narrow escape. It was a lesson about life itself. The ordinary can turn extraordinary without warning. Assumptions can mislead. Fear can teach. Courage can emerge from the most unlikely moments. And in that collision, everything changes, forever. Even now, I can feel it. The echo of my heartbeat, the tension that held the air in that alley, the split-second decision that defined the outcome. That night, I didn't just survive an encounter. I discovered the raw, unfiltered power of instinct, courage, and presence. And I realized something I will never forget. Life doesn't wait. Life doesn't give warnings. It simply presents you with moments that test every part of you, and how you respond shapes not just the moment, but you, forever. The streets were quiet now. Soft glows from streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement, but inside me, everything still felt alive with the echoes of what had happened. My legs were unsteady, my heart still beating faster than it should. Yet there was a calm beneath it all, a strange, heavy calm, like the eye of a storm. I had faced fear, uncertainty, and danger, and I had come through it. But the experience left something deeper than relief. It left understanding, a clarity about life I hadn't had before. As I walked home that night, my thoughts kept circling back to the encounter, the driver, the alley, and the decisions I had made in mere seconds. Each memory carried its own weight, the adrenaline, the panic, the fear that had gripped me so tightly it felt physical. But there was also the pride, the knowledge that in a world that often surprises and tests you, I had acted, I had survived, and I had learned. The ordinary can shift in the blink of an eye, I realized, and courage shows itself in the moments you least expect. I thought about the driver, the man whose presence had sparked the chaos. I couldn't hate him, not entirely. Our encounter wasn't simply about him or me. It was about life, and the collisions it throws in our path, about assumptions, misunderstandings, and the thin line between ordinary and extraordinary. That night, I understood that danger isn't always deliberate, and courage isn't always planned. It emerges from the choices you make when everything is uncertain, when fear and clarity collide. I carried that realization forward, letting it settle into my mind. Fear, I learned, is not something to escape, but something to understand. It sharpens perception, heightens instinct, and sometimes forces you to confront truths about yourself that comfort never could. I thought about everyone else who faces moments like this every day. The people walking through life's alleys, literal or figurative, without knowing what dangers or challenges might appear. How many of them recognize their own courage when it arises? How many survive with clarity, with lessons that will shape them forever? By the time I reached my apartment, I felt the weight of the day pressing down, not as exhaustion, but as a quiet reckoning. My life hadn't returned to what it was before. It could never be the same. The ordinary morning, the simple drive, the wrong car, the fear, the split-second decision. They had all combined into something unforgettable, a story that would remain with me always. I realized that some moments leave permanent marks, teaching lessons about strength, awareness, and the unpredictable way life unfolds. I thought about the larger meaning too. Life can be unpredictable, but it is often the unexpected moments that illuminate truths about society, assumptions, and how people respond to stress or fear. It reminded me that everyone has their own battles, their own encounters with fear and courage, some visible, some invisible. This isn't just my story. It's a reflection of moments countless people experience every day in ways that challenge them, shape them, and sometimes change them forever. As I sat by the window that night, looking at the city lights flickering in the distance, I realized that survival is more than just a physical act. It's an emotional journey. It's facing uncertainty, recognizing fear, making choices, and learning from every heartbeat that thrums in the moments that matter most. The experience taught me to pay attention, to trust my instincts, and to understand that courage is rarely loud or celebrated. It is quiet, subtle, and often comes when no one is watching. And yet, despite all that clarity, a question remained in my mind, a question that has stayed with me every day since. If faced with a life-altering moment, if fear and uncertainty collided with your instincts, what would you do? Would you freeze, like most people do? Or would you act, relying on the courage you might not know you had? That question lingers because the answer isn't simple, and it isn't always the same. It depends on the moment, on your choices, and on the strength you find within yourself when the world tests you. I thought about how much life can pivot on a single second, a single decision, a single action. That morning, that wrong car, that alley, they could have ended my story differently. But instead, they revealed who I was, what I was capable of, and how quickly life can challenge everything you assume about safety, control, and your own strength. I carry that lesson with me now, quietly, every day. A reminder that even ordinary life can hold extraordinary challenges, and that courage can appear in ways you never anticipate. And so, as I look back, I realize that this story isn't just about fear, danger, or a near miss. It's about growth, about clarity, about recognizing the strength hidden within us all. It's about understanding that life is unpredictable, that fear can teach, and that courage can emerge in the most surprising, shocking, and powerful ways. And if this story teaches anything, I hope it reminds you to pay attention, trust yourself, and recognize the power you carry when life tests you in ways you never imagined. Because one wrong turn, one unexpected moment, one split-second choice, it can change everything. And the question remains, when the world tests you, when fear and courage collide, what will you do?